Hello and thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Thursday, August 4th edition of our video devotionals. We appreciate you being with us today. Hope your Thursday's going well. And here we are again on another hot summer day. And yesterday, one of our ladies in the church commented she loved the outdoor noise of the crickets and all the things going on. I guess maybe it's frogs. I'm not sure what all's making all the noises. But prior to me starting this video here, a squirrel had come down probably within 10 feet, maybe a little bit closer, and he was up on a branch right above my head and making that strange little barking noise they do when they don't like something, or they see something like a cat or a dog and they kind of trying to annoy it or make it run or something. Well, he was doing that for a while, and I was a little bit surprised how close it got to me. So I kind of told him, I got to do my devotion, you better be quiet. So far he is, and maybe we won't hear him. But at any rate, we're glad you're here, and of course we call this Trusting Thursday, and we are trusting the Lord for our salvation. We trust the Lord with the everyday events of our lives, and let's acknowledge that, and we'll be the better for it. Okay, so we're starting this trek through the book of Jeremiah. The two chapters I read today were chapters 4 and 5, and it's real heavy language, and of course we can't just take a book like Jeremiah and discount the fact to pull out some things that don't really depict the book. This is right before the judgment of God, and virtually no one was respecting what Jeremiah was saying, and the Lord, of course, was giving him these things to say. So we're going to read from chapter 5 here. I think we're going to read down to verse number 5, and this is just kind of part of the language that we're finding here in these chapters. So we'll begin at verse number 1. Again, before we do that, again, thank you for all who watch the videos. We do appreciate you, and thank you for the comments and the kind words that you say. And we'll just continue, of course, to do these and get through the Bible this year as we go through it each day. All right, here's what it says in Jeremiah 5:1. Run ye to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem, and see now and know, and seek in the broad places thereof, if ye can find a man, if there be any that executeth judgment, that seeketh the truth, and I will pardon it. Now notice that, if ye can find one, any man. And though they say, the Lord liveth, surely they swear falsely. O Lord, are not thine eyes upon the truth? Thou hast stricken them, but they have not grieved. Thou hast consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than a rock. They have refused to return. Now let's just stop here a minute before we get through this and go back and reread the verses. The correction, the warnings that God was given, no one was listening. In fact, they just became harder to the message. And verse 2 there says, they speak these kind of words, the Lord liveth, and it says, surely they swear falsely, meaning that, it's easy to say things and not believe it. It's easy to tell people things they want to hear, and you just don't believe it. Sadly, like politicians, they'll go to an audience and tell them what they want to hear, but they don't believe it. They'll get elected, they'll go to a position, and then what they say they're going to do, they're not going to do because of, well, number one, maybe never intending to do what they said they're going to do, or the pressure that comes, and they just don't stand by their word, and no one likes that. And the Lord's acknowledging the fact, if you go and look for people, they may talk the game, but they just don't live, and they don't really believe what they're saying, and there's no weight to what they say. And then, of course, notice what it says here in verses 4 and 5. Therefore I said, surely these are poor, they are foolish, for they know not the way of the Lord, nor the judgment of their God. I will get me into the great men, and will speak unto them, for they have known the way of the Lord and the judgment of their God. But these have already together broken the yoke and burst the bond. So the last thing I want to say here is there are people that have known and know the Lord. And these are the people that you need to let influence you. As we grow up, naturally when you're a child, your buddies, your friends are people your age. And of course you have moms and dads and uncles and aunts, grandpas. You go to church or go places, there's adults, and they have their influence upon you. Then of course as you get older, you become a teenager, and that process becomes even more manifest. You really get your advice, you kind of do the things that teenagers will do, then you become a young adult and eventually an adult. But somewhere along the line, your life is greatly affected by the people that influence you. And here we find in this particular case that the people that lived in Jeremiah's day, most of those people, virtually all of them, didn't know anything about the Lord. And there may have been just a few that were older, the great men, it says. I believe these would have been the older, the ones that had known the Lord, and probably in that day they didn't have a lot of influence, because like today, you can speak the truth, but if you've got one person speaking the truth in a crowd of 100 and 99 don't believe it, and they kind of, in a sense, kind of gang up on or have no respect for the one, then it seems like everybody else kind of jumps on the bandwagon, kind of that mob mentality, and everybody seems to want to go the way of everybody else. And I always respect people who take their stand, and if there's a cost that has to be paid, I understand that, but just simply doing the truth for the truth's sake. And in Jeremiah's day, here's one man, he's going around, and the idea was, the Lord's going to judge, and he's already in a sense judged. And but there's going to come this very severe judgment where the country will be lost, and this destruction would happen. And there wasn't seemingly anybody there that was responding to that. And it did say, if there's anybody that you can learn anything from, even in that scenario, get to the great men, the ones that knew God. And we're living in a day where you got people that just don't know the Lord. And I don't mean that just simply from being saved or unsaved, but you take people that don't walk with God. This Bible here is God's holy word. This is how he speaks to us. This is how we're influenced. And people that don't read it, people that don't respect it, they hear it and just kind of, I hear it, but you go on your way as if it's just words. And that's just a sad thing, because we always need the Lord. There's no doubt about it. But there's going to come a time in people's lives where they're going to start reaching out to somebody, and if they're not careful, they're not going to have anybody in their circle that really knows the Lord, and that's a bad place to be. And so you better make sure you've got, a connection to the Lord yourself. But you better know people and get behind people. Respect people. Let those people influence you that know God. It might be a grandfather, a grandmother. It might be your mom and dad. It might be a preacher. It might be whoever, a good friend, somebody that you know knows the Lord. When we ask people to pray for us, don't you know there's certain people in our mind that we say, I definitely want them to pray for me. You know why? Because they know the Lord. And they don't have to wait, a day or two to try to get reconnected back to God. They seemingly have a close relationship, which is what all of us should. But I will say this, in Jeremiah's day, sad situation. As we read along, you'll see the Lord's just saying to one man, Jeremiah, you're going to preach it, and you're not going to have much of a response at all, but you're going to preach what I bid you to preach. And sadly, you're going to be talking to people that don't know the Lord. And that's their choice, by the way. That's their choice. So I know these are heavy words, but I don't want to read a book like Jeremiah and just pick out things as if, Jeremiah's a man trying to encourage everybody. Yeah, he's trying to encourage them to get right with God. And sometimes the message we need to hear is just plain out, hey, let's make sure we're right with God. And that's not being nasty. That's not being rude or unkind. It's just telling the truth. And we're living in a day we need more people to know the Lord. And let's be that kind of people, okay? So I hope you have a wonderful day. Hope you're safe and healthy today. We'll see you tomorrow on what we call Faithful Friday, and we'll see you tomorrow.